Welcome, curious minds, to the deep dive. Today, we're not just exploring a topic, we're actually witnessing, I think, a really profound, almost unsettling shift happening right now in real time. It's something that's quietly, maybe inexorably reshaping the very nature of conflict. Imagine of a third revolution in warfare. It's a concept so significant that, minds like Stephen Hawking and Elon Musk have warned about its arrival. That's kind of the landscape we're about to explore. Our deep dive today is into a subject that, well, it might sound like it belongs firmly in science fiction, but it's actually a stark reality on battlefields worldwide right now. We're talking about autonomous weapon systems, or AWS. And just to be clear, we mean devices capable of selecting and engaging targets without direct human control. Think AI-guided drones making their own calls, robotic sentries patrolling borders. This isn't some far-off future scenario. It's our present.
And it's really not just a technical leap, is it? It presents humanity with this unprecedented moral and strategic crossroads. You've got proponents on one side championing these systems, as potent force multipliers. They argue they can save human lives by removing soldiers from immediate danger, offering this kind of unparalleled efficiency and precision in combat. But then, of course, there's the other side, the deeply concerned side. These are the critics raising serious alarms about grave ethical and security risks, particularly when you delegate the actual decision to take a human life to a machine. It's a debate that really forces us to re-examine the very essence of human responsibility and where global conflict is heading.
Right. So what does this all mean for you listening right now? Our mission today is to cut through the noise, cut through the hype maybe, and arm you with the knowledge to truly navigate this rapidly evolving landscape. We're going to pull back the curtain on the real-world deployments happening as we speak. We'll explore the complex ethical, legal, geopolitical implications these systems bring. We'll examine expert predictions for how they'll fundamentally reshape future warfare. And finally, we'll draw some crucial historical parallels to help us all understand what's truly at stake here. By the end of this deep dive, you should have a really comprehensive grasp on one of the most pressing and maybe most challenging issues of our time. All right, let's pull back that curtain then and look at the real tangible impact. Because when we talk about autonomous weapons, it is easy, isn't it, to conjure up images straight out of a Hollywood blockbuster, the Terminator scenario. But the sources are clear. These aren't just theoretical concepts anymore. They're already here. They're actively deployed, influencing conflicts. Can you maybe walk us through some concrete examples from around the globe? What does this actually look like on the ground or, in the air?
Yeah, that's a critical distinction to make right from the start. The reality is actually far more pervasive and more nuanced than many people might assume. Autonomous weapon systems today, they range from what are called loitering munitions, sometimes grimly called suicide drones. These can hunt targets independently for extended periods, all the way to highly advanced defensive systems that operate at machine speed. What's truly, fascinating here, and maybe a bit unsettling, is that dozens of countries are actively developing or already deploying these systems. It's not just the handful of global superpowers anymore, though they are certainly leading the charge in terms of investment and scale. Let's start with the United States. We've seen the deployment of the Switchblade 300 kamikaze drone to Ukraine. Now, this is a compact, kind of expendable strike weapon. Once it's launched, it can be set to autonomously find and engage targets. It's a pretty stark contrast to a system like, say, the MQ-9 Reaper drone, which, while it's remotely piloted, still has automated functions for things like takeoff, landing, complex navigation. So even if a human is still technically in the loop for the Reaper's lethal actions, you can see how automation is subtly, creeping into various functions, making operations faster, more efficient. And then on the defensive side, the U.S. Navy's Aegis combat system and the Phalanx CIWS, that's the close-in weapon system, they're prime examples. These systems are designed to autonomously detect incoming missiles and shoot them down at speeds no human could possibly react to. For ship defense, it's an absolute necessity. There's simply no time for human intervention once a threat like that is detected. It's truly a matter of milliseconds. And looking ahead, the Pentagon is rapidly expanding its autonomous capabilities. They've got, I think the number is over 800 AI-related military projects currently underway. And they requested a staggering $1.8 billion for AI in their fiscal year 2024 budget. And then there's this ambitious Replicator initiative. This aims to deploy swarms, literally swarms, of expendable autonomous drones by 2025. The core idea here is to counter China's military mass with a similar mass of smart machines. And in a recent, almost cinematic test that really underscores how close we are to fully autonomous combat aircraft, an AI successfully flew a real F-16 fighter jet for over 17 hours. It was navigating, responding to simulated threats, making decisions. This isn't just a simulation. This is real hardware and software operating together in the physical world. pretty incredible.
That F-16 test, yeah, it sounds like something straight out of a blockbuster. You're absolutely right. It really drives home how quickly this is all advancing, almost faster than many of us can really grasp. And it's certainly not just the U.S. pushing these boundaries, is it? What about China, a nation often seen as, well, a primary competitor in this whole space?
That's a crucial point. No, not at all. China is arguably in an even more aggressive pursuit of these capabilities. Beijing is heavily investing in what they call intelligentized weapons. Essentially, these are deeply integrated AI-enabled systems across all domains. They're prioritizing this military modernization effort. We're talking about prototypes for large-scale drone swarms, advanced AI-guided UAVs, unmanned aerial vehicles like their Wing Lung and CH series, and a wide array of combat ground robots, too. Recent reports from 2024 even suggest that China could field fully autonomous AI weapons on the battlefield within just 2 years. So by around 2026, this clearly signals an intensive and frankly accelerating arms race. What's also profoundly significant is China's growing role as a major exporter of armed drones. They're selling them to countries that the U.S. often refuses to supply. And this widespread availability is a critical factor in the global proliferation discussion because it lowers the bar for many nations to acquire these kinds of capabilities.
And Russia, given the ongoing conflict in Ukraine, how are they leveraging or maybe testing these systems in a real-world combat scenario? It really feels like the war there has become an active laboratory for these technologies.
It absolutely has. The Russia-Ukraine war has indeed become a critical testing ground for various autonomous and semi-autonomous systems. Russia has notably deployed the KUB-BLA Lancet drone and KUB-BLA kamikaze UAVs. These are compact, explosive drones designed for one-way missions. They've been used to strike Ukrainian artillery vehicles. They feature an autonomous target acquisition mode, meaning they can identify or lock onto targets on their own. Though reports do indicate their reliability and precision in these autonomous modes have, well, varied. Beyond air systems, Russia has also tested the Marker UGV, that's an unmanned ground vehicle in Syria, demonstrating its autonomous navigation capabilities in complex terrain. And looking even further ahead, they're developing ambitious autonomous underwater weapons, such as the Poseidon nuclear torpedo, which highlights a strategic long-term vision for integrating autonomy across all military domains.
It sounds like that conflict is really providing a real-time proving ground, maybe accelerating development and deployment. What about Israel, a nation often seen at the forefront of military innovation? How are they utilizing this autonomy?
Israel has been a pioneer, especially in loitering munitions, particularly with its IAI Harpy and Harop anti-radar drones. These are really fascinating systems because they are designed to independently search for enemy radar emissions. Once detected, they literally dive bomb them without any further human guidance. It's like a fire and forget system for suppressing enemy air defenses. Their impact has been substantial. For instance, Azerbaijan reportedly used the Israeli Harop to devastating effect in the 2020 Nagorno-Karabakh war, showcasing their capacity to significantly alter battlefield dynamics. Beyond fully autonomous munitions, the Israeli military is also a major user of AI-assisted targeting systems. In the 2023 Gaza conflict, algorithms were reported to have flagged, get this, tens of thousands of potential targets for human review. This demonstrates a different but equally significant facet of AI and autonomy in modern warfare, not just acting autonomously, but identifying and processing information at a scale humans simply cannot.
Wow, that scale of AI-assisted targeting is just mind-boggling, almost like an automated intelligence agency, as you say. And Turkey, what have they been fielding that's noteworthy in this space?
Turkey has developed and deployed autonomous tactical drones, most notably the STM Kargu-2 quadcopter. This is a relatively low-cost system, but it's incredibly capable. It features facial recognition and, crucially, lethal autonomous engagement capabilities. The Kargu-2 made international headlines because a UN report suggested it was used to autonomously attack human targets in Libya back in 2020. Now, if confirmed, this would potentially mark the first recorded instance of a machine autonomously hunting and attacking humans without a human in the loop for that final kill decision. This represents a critical, maybe chilling step towards independent lethal action by machines. It contrasts sharply with their highly effective Bayraktar 2B2 drone, which, while it incorporates autonomous navigation and is battle-proven, is still human-controlled in its lethal application. The Kargu-2 incident specifically highlights that crucial distinction between autonomy in navigation and autonomy in actually engaging targets.
That is a chilling thought. A machine autonomously attacking humans. It really pushes the boundaries of what we've considered acceptable in warfare, doesn't it? And finally, let's turn to South Korea, particularly given their unique border situation. How are they integrating autonomous systems into their defense posture?
South Korea has been a leader in automated border defense, primarily deploying the Samsung SGR-A1 guard robot in the demilitarized zone, the DMZ, which is, as you know, one of the most heavily fortified borders in the world. These robotic sentries use AI vision and thermal cameras to automatically detect and track intruders. Now, while the robot is physically capable of autonomous firing, the current rules require human authorization before engagement. However, the critical point is that the capability for independent engagement exists by design. It's a clear example of how the technology is already there, fully developed, and it's really policy decisions and ethical considerations that are currently keeping the human in the loop for the final act. This really highlights the tension between technological capability and the policy constraints nations are wrestling with right now.
So, hearing about all these deployments from the Switchblade in Ukraine, the KUB-BLA potentially in Libya, those F-16 tests, the robotic sentries in the DMZ, what does this all mean for us collectively? It sounds like this isn't just about superpowers squaring off anymore. It's a rapidly proliferating technology that affects the entire global landscape. What's the core takeaway here that's maybe surprising or, I don't know, counterintuitive?
That's an excellent question, and it's precisely the central insight, I think, from this section. What stands out is the widespread proliferation and, frankly, the accessibility of these systems. It's no longer confined to the US, China, and Russia. Even mid-sized militaries, and as we discussed with Turkey's exports and the increasing use of improvised drones, potentially even non-state actors, are gaining access to these systems. The automation of force isn't a theoretical concept anymore. It's not something discussed only in academic labs or military think tanks. It is a present reality, actively shaping conflicts and military strategies globally right now. The counterintuitive part, perhaps, is that the barrier to entry, compared to past revolutionary military technologies like nuclear weapons or even advanced fighter jets, is surprisingly low. This makes it a truly global phenomenon, creating a highly complex and potentially unpredictable security environment for everyone involved.
That's a powerful point, that the proliferation itself is a game changer. And that brings us, to where it gets really interesting. Moving from what's out there to what does this all mean? These machines aren't just tools anymore. They're making decisions that can have lethal consequences. And that inevitably brings up some heavy, profound questions about our values and, well, our future.
Absolutely. The increasing deployment of autonomous weapon systems forces us to confront some of the deepest ethical, legal, and geopolitical questions of our time. It compels us to ask not just, can we build this technology, but maybe more importantly, should we? And, what are the long-term consequences if we do? Let's maybe start with the ethical considerations, because that's often where the most visceral objections and debates really lie. The core ethical dilemma, fundamentally, is this. Many argue it is just fundamentally wrong to delegate the killing of humans to algorithms. It's seen as undermining human dignity, eroding moral agency, and ultimately kind of cheapening human life. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres has been quite clear on this, stating that such weapons are morally repugnant and politically unacceptable. And this sentiment is widely echoed. You just have to consider that powerful open letter from 2015. It was signed by over 3,000 AI and robotics experts, including, luminaries like Stephen Hawking and Elon Musk. They warned that fully autonomous weapons would usher in a third revolution in warfare, potentially destabilizing humanity's security, and they called for a preemptive ban. Their conviction is that permitting machines to decide whom to kill crosses an ethical line, a line that humanity should not permit itself to cross. It is, in their view, a step towards a future we might profoundly regret.
That open letter from Hawking and Musk, it really resonates, particularly with this whole idea of a third revolution.
Yep.
It highlights what I kind of think of as the compassion gap. What's the fundamental difference between a human soldier making a lethal decision, however difficult, and a machine doing it? Is there any scenario where a purely rational AI might actually be, dare I say, more ethical in its targeting than a human soldier under extreme duress?
That's a crucial and very insightful question, exploring the nuances of this ethical debate. A human soldier, even in the chaos and extreme pressure of battle, possesses judgment, context, and a moral compass, however imperfectly applied sometimes. They can, at least in theory, choose to disobey a wrongful order or even show mercy. A robot, on the other hand, simply follows its code. It doesn't understand the value of human life. It lacks the capacity for compassion, fear, or revenge. It cannot discern the subtle context that might warrant restraint, or the complex, ambiguous nuances of a situation that might lead a human to hold fire. This dehumanization of lethal decision-making, taking the moral responsibility out of human hands, deeply troubles ethicists and even many experienced military officers. This is why meaningful human control has become such a key phrase, an ethical imperative in these discussions. It's about ensuring that a human being, not just code, is always holding the ultimate kill switch, making the final moral and legal judgment call. Like a driver always having their hands on the wheel, even if the car has autopilot capabilities. In fact, I think it's 97 countries in UN discussions have explicitly affirmed the necessity of human judgment remaining involved in decisions regarding the use of force. Now, to address your point about whether an AI could be more ethical, it's a fascinating, if definitely a minority perspective. Some experts do suggest that autonomous weapons could, in certain theoretical cases, behave more ethically on the battlefield than humans. The argument basically posits that machines don't act out of anger, fear, or revenge. They don't panic or commit atrocities out of hatred. And AI supposedly has no emotions like fear and hysteria, so its decision-making might be more consistent, more objective, less prone to unlawful brutality under stress. In this highly theoretical scenario, a perfectly designed autonomous weapon might even refuse an illegal attack that a panicked or vengeful human might carry out, thereby potentially reducing war crimes by strictly adhering to its programming and the laws of war. However, and this is a big however, it's critical to caution that such hopes remain speculative at best. To date, there is little to no evidence that any AI can reliably make the incredibly complex ethical distinctions required in combat, particularly in the fog of war. Given the incredibly high stakes involved, most ethicists firmly insist that life or death decisions must demand human conscience and accountability, not just data and code. And the accountability gap, which I think we should discuss next, really underscores this profound challenge.
That's a powerful distinction. Okay, so moving from ethics to legality,
Yeah.
how do autonomous weapons directly challenge international humanitarian law, particularly those core principles like distinction and proportionality? It seems like these machines introduce fundamental questions here. I mean, you asked earlier, can an algorithm truly differentiate a farmer with a shovel from a soldier with a rifle, or a civilian vehicle from a military one, chaos of a battlefield?
That is precisely the challenge, and it cuts right to the heart of existing international humanitarian law, or IHL. IHL has these two fundamental principles that are especially relevant here. Distinction, which means combatants must be clearly differentiated from civilians and civilian objects, and proportionality, meaning any attack must be proportionate to the military advantage gained, always minimizing civilian harm. IHL also mandates that a responsible human commander make judgments to comply with these rules. With autonomous systems, it becomes incredibly murky whether these legal principles can actually be upheld consistently. Humanitarian organizations frequently point out that AI-driven weapons may not reliably differentiate a legitimate military target from a civilian. An object recognition algorithm, just as you say, could easily mistake a farmer with a shovel for a soldier with a rifle, or a civilian vehicle for a military one, with potentially devastating consequences. The sheer complexity and chaotic, ambiguous elements of real-world combat scenarios are something algorithms are just not yet equipped to handle with the kind of nuanced human judgment required by IHL. And this leads directly to another crucial issue, perhaps the most problematic legal challenge of all: the accountability gap. If an autonomous weapon commits an error and tragically kills civilians, who is legally accountable? Is it the programmer who wrote the code, the manufacturer who built the system, the commander who deployed it? Or is it the machine itself, which of course cannot be held accountable in any meaningful legal sense? This gap means it may be, quote, impossible to assign responsibility for war crimes committed by autonomous agents. One expert put it very succinctly. Fully autonomous weapons technically cannot be used in war under current IHL because they completely obscure who is to blame for unlawful harms. The fundamental requirement of human responsibility for each attack, for distinguishing combatants and minimizing harm, is fundamentally undermined by these systems. Because of these profound ethical and legal issues, many jurists and diplomats argue that new legally binding rules are absolutely necessary before autonomous weapons become widespread and, well, uncontrollable. The United Nations, recognizing this urgency, convened a group of governmental experts, GGE, back in 2017. This was under the Convention on Certain Conventional Weapons, specifically to discuss lethal autonomous weapon systems, or LAW-WS. Now, while these GGE talks have produced some useful guiding principles over the years, they haven't reached a consensus on a legally binding treaty, largely due to strong disagreement among major military powers who frankly fear losing a technological edge if they agree to a ban. This diplomatic deadlock has been a major source of frustration for many observers and campaigners.
But there's been a significant development recently, hasn't there? I recall the UN General Assembly actually took a stand, signaling maybe a shift in the international community's approach on this.
Yes, that's where things get really interesting and offer perhaps a glimmer of progress, even hope, for advocates of arms control. Frustrated with the slow pace of the GGE, a large majority of states at the UN General Assembly decided to push the issue forward. In December 2024, the General Assembly adopted a groundbreaking resolution. This resolution explicitly recognized the urgent need to address autonomous weapons, and crucially, it called for negotiating a new international instrument, one with prohibition and regulations, essentially a two-tier approach, banning the most dangerous, fully autonomous systems while also regulating others to ensure human control. The vote itself was incredibly telling. 166 countries voted in favor. Only 3 opposed: Russia, North Korea, and Belarus. The UN Secretary General has even set a target of 2026 for concluding a treaty that aims to ensure meaningful human control and prevent systems that cannot comply with IHL. This is a significant diplomatic step forward, no doubt. However, until such new international law is firmly in place, militaries are navigating with their own national policies, and these are quite divergent, reflecting deep strategic calculations. For example, the U.S. Department of Defense has issued directives insisting that all autonomous weapon operations must involve appropriate levels of human judgment and undergo rigorous legal review. This reflects a cautious, though clearly not prohibitive, approach. It leaves room for continued development. In stark contrast, countries like the UK and Russia openly oppose a ban. They claim that existing international law is sufficient. This is happening even as they continue to invest heavily in increasingly autonomous capabilities. This divergence in national policies isn't just about legal interpretation. It reflects a broader geopolitical split. Some states fear losing a strategic technological advantage if they agree to a ban, while others, often smaller states without advanced AI programs, fear being left vulnerable in a world where killer robots become commonplace. So the legal and ethical debate is deeply, deeply intertwined with strategic calculations and geopolitical power considerations.
That brings us perfectly to the geopolitical and security implications then. Because this isn't just about what's right or wrong, or even just what's strictly legal. It's fundamentally about power dynamics on a global scale. It really sounds like we're already locked into an AI arms race.
We are, absolutely. Advanced nations now view AI-enabled military technology as the new crucial arena of strategic competition. It's a direct parallel, really, to the early nuclear arms race. Officials and analysts are widely warning of an emerging AI arms race. The fear is palpable. If any country believes it can gain a decisive first strike advantage with autonomous weapons, it could easily ignite rapid proliferation among rivals. And critically, it could lower the threshold for conflict. The ability to attack an adversary with little or maybe without risk to one's own troops might embolden leaders to take more aggressive actions, potentially leading to dangerous miscalculation. There's a very real concern that lethal AI could, counterintuitively, make the world less safe by accelerating the tempo of warfare beyond human control and creating these hair-trigger situations. Strategists have even coined terms like flash wars to describe conflicts that could escalate in mere minutes or seconds due to automated retaliation loops. It's reminiscent of flash crashes in financial markets. It almost sounds like something out of a real-time strategy game, but with truly terrifying stakes. It makes you wonder, if these flash wars happen, will we even have time to understand what went wrong before it's, well, too late? And we're already seeing this AI-fueled shift in military power dynamics play out, most prominently between the United States and China. They are demonstrably locked in a race to harness AI for military advantage. Both are actively testing swarms of autonomous drones, developing AI-driven cyber weapons, and building sophisticated decision support algorithms for commanders. China's military writings, for example, openly discuss achieving information dominance through AI, using machine speed decision-making to outsmart and paralyze an enemy. A U.S. Army analysis mirrors this concern, concluding that integrating AI into weapons and command systems could fundamentally change the balance of power in conflict. This suggests that achieving superiority in autonomous systems might confer the kind of decisive edge that, say, air power or even nuclear weapons did in earlier eras. Nations that lag behind in this AI military revolution could find their conventional strength suddenly much less relevant. It's a scenario some compare to that devastatingly one-sided fight between Saddam Hussein's army and U.S. high-tech forces back in 1991. Where one side's technological leap made the fight disastrously unbalanced almost before it truly began.
That's a powerful and, chilling analogy, highlighting the potential for a massive sudden power imbalance. But what about everyone else? Is this technology going to stay with just the big players? Or is it going to proliferate much more widely given its, accessibility?
That's another major concern, and it's a critical difference from past arms races like the nuclear one. Unlike nuclear technology, AI and drone technology are incredibly ubiquitous. They often draw from widely available civilian components, and in many cases, they are relatively inexpensive. This means military AI capabilities will certainly not stay confined to the US, China, and Russia. The barrier to entry for developing or acquiring certain autonomous weapons is far lower than for nuclear arms. We're already seeing middle powers, and as we discussed with Turkey's exports and the increasing use of improvised drones, even non-state actors acquiring lethal drones and robotic weapons. Because the parts and the knowledge are widely available globally. Insurgent and terrorist groups have, for years now, used improvised drone bombs. And experts fear it's only a matter of time before they seek truly autonomous killing machines. Imagine rogue states or violent non-state groups deploying swarms of autonomous explosive drones to spread chaos. This is considered a nightmare scenario for security agencies worldwide. This broad diffusion could dramatically upset regional balances and make conflicts far more unpredictable and harder to contain. It also significantly complicates global governance. Regulating a technology that so many can develop, including civilian tech companies, is far harder than past arms control efforts which focused on just a few nation-states. So, to summarize the truly double-edged geopolitical impact of war automation, it creates this unique paradox. Great powers are driven to compete in AI military tech due to the fear of falling behind. This spurs an arms race and potentially undermines strategic stability. Simultaneously, this very competition among major powers that seeks to secure them simultaneously democratizes access to lethal autonomy, threatening global stability from multiple directions. It's a strategic dilemma unlike any we've faced before, where the solution isn't just about managing state-level arsenals, but controlling a distributed, evolving threat, all within a context where international institutions are racing to catch up, trying desperately to put guardrails in place before the most destabilizing systems become a widespread reality.
Right. So if this is where we are, with these systems already on the battlefield, these profound ethical, legal, geopolitical questions swirling, where are we actually heading? How do the experts see the future of warfare shaping up with these autonomous systems? It seems like there's a general agreement that autonomy will absolutely transform the battlefield, but the nature of that transformation is still, well, a subject of intense debate, isn't it?
That's precisely it. Most experts concur that autonomy is set to fundamentally reshape the future battlefield, although their specific forecasts do vary quite a bit. Many military strategists envision a future where AI-driven systems will radically outperform humans in that observe, orient, decide at, act loop, the ODA loop of combat decision-making. That's the rapid cycle of processing information and responding to threats. Retired U.S. General John Allen, for instance, has described a coming era of hyperwar. In this vision, autonomous swarms, high-speed AI analytics, cyber weapons. They operate at such immense speed and coordination that human decision-making is largely sidelined. In such conflicts, the role of humans might be limited to simply setting the broad objectives and the rules of engagement. While the tactical and operational decisions, the moment-to-moment choices in battle are made entirely by algorithms in real time. The warning from these analysts is stark. The side that successfully deploys true autonomous warfighting networks could utterly overwhelm an adversary that still relies on slower human-in-the-loop systems. As AI researcher Amir Hussain powerfully put it, once machines can make decisions faster than humans, having a person in the loop could be like bringing a musket to a modern gunfight, a profound, potentially fatal disadvantage that no military wants to accept. Now, on a more optimistic note, some defense experts do highlight how autonomous systems could actually save lives, both human and financial, and significantly enhance military effectiveness. Paul Scharr, he's a former U.S. Army Ranger and a leading voice in this field. He aptly observes that robots don't get tired, they don't get hungry, and they don't flinch. These are attributes, he argues, that could make them excellent partners to human soldiers on the battlefield, especially in high-stress, prolonged operations. He, along with others, envisions what they call centaur teams, where the invaluable judgment of humans is precisely paired with the tireless precision and speed of machines, leading to better outcomes than either could achieve alone. Advanced AI could handle the dull, dirty, and dangerous tasks. Imagine robots clearing treacherous minefields, or autonomous drones performing high-G aerial maneuvers that no human pilot could survive. This frees up human personnel to concentrate on higher-level strategy, ethics, political decisions, and militaries are already moving in this direction. The U.S. Air Force, for instance, has a program to build over 1,000 collaborative combat aircraft, CCA. These are unmanned, AI-driven fighters designed to augment its manned squadrons in any potential clash with pure adversaries. If successful, such integration could fundamentally reshape force structures, leading to potentially smaller human armies, yes, but backed by vast numbers of intelligent machines, creating a very different kind of fighting force.
But there's always a but with AI, isn't there? It's rarely a perfect, seamless solution. What are the key uncertainties and risks that even the optimists have to acknowledge?
Indeed, you've hit on a crucial point. Even the most optimistic proponents acknowledge significant uncertainties and inherent risks. A major one is the black box nature of AI, especially with advanced machine learning. Its decision processes are often opaque and unpredictable. You can see the input and the output, but not necessarily how the AI arrived at its conclusion. This opaqueness is inherently dangerous in warfare. How do you fully trust a system whose reasoning you can't trace or fully understand? It's a bit like having a brilliant co-pilot in a plane who can fly perfectly, but can't explain how they're making those split-second decisions. Great for flying, maybe, but terrifying when lives are on the line and you need to understand intent and accountability. A recent RAND study, for instance, posited that militaries will initially use AI in roles like surveillance, target identification, defensive systems, but they may, or perhaps should, hesitate to give AI full lethal authority until reliability and ethical considerations are proven beyond any doubt. There is also the crucial question of control. As autonomous systems become more complex and interconnected, will humans truly be able to confidently control vast swarms of lethal robots in the chaos and fog of war? What happens if a drone swarm makes an unexpected turn, or misidentifies a target, or simply behaves in a way its programmers didn't anticipate? Incidents of friendly fire or unintended engagements by autonomous units could severely erode trust and prompt unnecessary pullback. Or conversely, and perhaps more worryingly, such incidents might paradoxically push militaries to remove humans from the loop entirely. If human reaction time is perceived as the weakest link in high-speed combat, importantly, multiple analysts stress that the future isn't predetermined, it will be shaped by the choices we make now. If nations agree on strong norms, for instance, that a human must approve any kill decision, that principle of meaningful human control, then the role of autonomy might be kept in check, ensuring responsible use. If not, however, we could rapidly slide into a world where competing algorithms fight at lightning speed, with humans simply watching, or worse, getting caught in the crossfire of automated clashes. Mary Wareham of Human Rights Watch issues a stark caution. Without explicit rules, we risk a grim future of automated killing that places civilians in grave danger. Even some military leaders express wariness. They note that war is inherently political and human, and removing humans too much from the equation could lead to uncontrollable escalation or wars of attrition between machines that humans might have, through negotiation or de-escalation, avoided. At the same time, strategic analysts point out the undeniable military allure and the strategic imperative. If one major power harnesses autonomy effectively while its rivals do not, it could fundamentally shift global power balances dramatically. A 2019 West Point study, for instance, explicitly stated that AI integration in military systems could fundamentally change the balance of power, and strongly urged the U.S. to invest heavily to avoid falling behind. Similarly, Russian and Chinese military writings depict AI as a game changer for achieving superiority. Russian doctrine, for example, envisions using AI to paralyze enemy command networks and execute precision strikes at will, thereby offsetting Western conventional advantages. Thus, even leaders who are cautious about autonomy's risks may feel compelled to push forward aggressively, simply for fear of ceding a decisive advantage to adversaries. This dynamic, very much akin to the logic of the nuclear arms race, imbues expert forecasts with a profound sense of urgency. The next decade is seen as absolutely critical for establishing both the technological guardrails and the military deterrence that will define the realm of AI, and ultimately the future of conflict itself.
Fascinating. And, to truly understand where we're going, sometimes you really do have to look back. The sources suggest this is potentially a third revolution in warfare, following gunpowder and nuclear weapons. What can history teach us about these kinds of massive technological shifts and how humanity typically responds to them?
That's an excellent point, and history offers some truly compelling and often quite sobering insights. It's often argued that autonomous weapons could constitute this third revolution in warfare, following the introduction of gunpowder and then the advent of nuclear weapons. By examining the impacts of these earlier revolutions, particularly the machine gun in World War I and the nuclear bomb in World War II, we can maybe better understand how autonomous weapons might alter conflict and, crucially, what pitfalls humanity needs to avoid this time around. Let's start with the machine gun. It truly dramatically changed combat in the early 20th century. Before its widespread adoption, infantry tactics still relied heavily on mass charges, mover warfare. But the Maxim and Vickers guns, introduced in the late 1800s, could fire hundreds of rounds per minute. They literally mowed down waves of soldiers with unprecedented, chilling efficiency. In World War I, this defensive firepower transformed the Western Front into that horrific stalemate of trenches and barbed wire. The machine gun revolutionized combat, rendering old tactics obsolete almost overnight. It was responsible for a massive share of WWI casualties. Generals were forced to develop entirely new strategies, like creeping artillery barrages, infiltration tactics, eventually tank assaults, just to try and break the deadly gridlock created by these machine guns. This first modern automation of killing, as some call it, where a single gun crew could inflict devastation that previously required dozens of riflemen, foreshadowed many issues we're grappling with today regarding autonomous weapons. The machine gun, in some respects, leveled the playing field. A small unit in a fortified bunker could halt a much larger attacking force, just as a small state with drones might deter a bigger foe today. This very ethical shock we saw with the machine gun, it was initially decried as a tool of impersonal mass slaughter, is precisely what we're witnessing today with the idea of machines making life and death decisions. It shows just how deeply ingrained human moral agency is in our understanding of conflict. Yet despite early calls to ban such cruel weapons, machine guns quickly became standard military equipment worldwide. The lesson here is stark. Once a revolutionary weapon proves effective on the battlefield, it proliferates. Militaries adapt rather than give it up. A pattern that could very well repeat with AI weapons unless robust international agreements intervene quickly.
Right, so if the machine gun was a tactical shock that redefined ground combat, the atomic bomb, well, that was on a whole other level. It fundamentally redefined warfare strategically, creating this new era of deterrence.
Absolutely. The atomic bomb was a strategic revolution that fundamentally altered global conflict. The use of 2 nuclear weapons in 1945 instantly ended World War II in the Pacific, demonstrating a power of apocalyptic scale previously unimaginable. In the post-war years, direct great power wars became virtually unthinkable due to the horrifying threat of mutual annihilation. Instead, this tense system of deterrence emerged, most notably with the concept of mutually assured destruction, MAD, which governed the Cold War standoff for decades. Crucially, nuclear weapons also spurred unprecedented international efforts at arms control, like the Non-Proliferation Treaty, NPT, and various arms limitation agreements. Leaders across the globe recognized that this technology, if left unrestrained, had the capacity to destroy civilization itself. In that sense, the nuclear revolution offers a hopeful precedent, perhaps. The world largely pulled back from using nuclear weapons in war after 1945. We established strong norms and treaties to reduce the risk of nuclear war. Some analysts argue that autonomous weapons might require a similar approach, preemptive arms control, to prevent an AI arms race from spiraling completely out of control. There's even an analogy made in the balance of terror. If both sides in a conflict deploy autonomous lethal swarms, could it deter open conflict in the way nuclear arsenals do, by making the cost of war too high for both sides? Or, and this is a critical question, would it have the opposite effect? Since robots lower the human cost of fighting for the deploying nation, thereby perhaps lowering the bar for initiating violence. This remains a key unanswered question. It's also vital to point out a key difference. Unlike nuclear weapons, AI and robotics have extensive civilian applications. They're largely developed outside government control within the private sector. This makes them far harder to cordon off and regulate. Nonetheless, the nuclear age shows that international dialogue and treaties can mitigate the worst dangers of a game-changing weapon. And many experts are urging a similar proactive effort now for autonomous weapons. So, while autonomous weapons share significant traits with past revolutionary technologies, they also possess unique aspects that make them distinct and, in some ways, even more challenging. Like gunpowder or the machine gun, they promise to vastly increase battlefield lethality. They will certainly reward new tactics, like swarming attacks and human-machine teaming, while punishing armies that fail to adapt quickly. And like nuclear weapons, they raise existential risks. An uncontrolled AI war could escalate in unpredictable ways, potentially even faster than human reaction time, leading to that flash war scenario. As with both prior revolutions, they challenge existing laws and ethical norms, prompting urgent calls for new rules of war. However, there are crucial distinctions. One is the gradual, distributed deployment of autonomy. Gunpowder and the atomic bomb had relatively clear transformative introduction moments. In contrast, autonomous functions are being added stepwise, incrementally, to many weapon systems. A new targeting algorithm here, a new drone swarm capability there, without a single dramatic watershed event. This slow creep could be profoundly dangerous, as it might dull public realization of the true risks until a catastrophic accident or atrocity occurs. A second, even more profound difference is that advanced autonomous weapons could potentially self-evolve through machine learning. This means they could make complex decisions that even their human creators do not fully understand. Neither a machine gun nor a nuclear warhead decides on its own whom to engage their blunt instruments. but an advanced AI weapon might choose targets or adapt its behavior in ways that surprise or even defy human comprehension, complicating concepts like deterrence and accountability. This truly unique aspect has led some commentators to suggest we need a new Geneva Convention specifically for AI to ensure meaningful human control and prevent unpredictable AI behavior in war.
So, looking at all these parallels, it really seems humanity always comes to a choice at these crucial junctures in military technology. Feels like we're right at one now.
Precisely. Each time a truly transformative weapon emerged, humanity faced a fundamental choice, either to regulate it or to suffer the consequences. Think of chemical weapons. They were used extensively and horrifically in WWI. That spurred the 1925 Geneva Protocol banning poison gas, a vital and early successful arms control effort. With nuclear arms, we pulled back from the brink through treaties, hotlines, test bans once the existential stakes were fully recognized. Autonomous weapons are now at that very juncture. We have seen early warning signs like that potential Cargo 2 incident in Libya where a loitering drone autonomously attacked retreating soldiers, or an AI targeting system misidentifying civilians in exercises. Yet, the military allure of these systems, their promise of efficiency and reduced human risk, is undeniably powerful. The coming few years, as the UN and various states continue their deliberations, will likely determine whether autonomous weapons are successfully tamed by international agreement, or whether they precipitate a destabilizing and unpredictable new arms competition.
What an incredible journey we've taken today. From the current battlefield deployments of autonomous weapons being a stark reality, all the way to the profound ethical, legal, and geopolitical questions they raise. It's so clear this isn't just some distant future, it's happening right now, shaping conflicts and forcing really tough choices.
And that's why the automation of warfare is truly at a critical crossroads. History unequivocally shows us that transformative weapons demand proactive management, demand cooperation to avoid catastrophic human cost. Without foresight, without common agreement, new technologies can upend warfare in ways that inflict unimaginable suffering before doctrine, law, or even public understanding can possibly catch up. What's encouraging, perhaps, is that the international community is beginning to respond. Dozens of countries and a strong chorus of civil society voices are now actively calling for new rules to ensure that humans retain control over the use of force. Even as militaries worldwide rush to exploit the advantages of AI, there's a broad recognition that some fundamental red lines should not be crossed, not just for humanitarian protection, but frankly, for the sake of global stability itself.
And this brings us to a crucial point, one that UN Secretary General Guterres urgently warned about. Time is running out. The future of war, and perhaps even the future of peace, may well hinge on the choices we make right now about our autonomous creations. So the question for you, listening, is, what is your role in this unfolding story? How can you, as an informed citizen, contribute to the critical choices we make now about these autonomous creations, ensuring that we somehow reap the benefits of innovation without surrendering our conscience or our safety? What responsibility does an understanding of these issues place on you?